Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Unit 3. And instead of going on to Day 5, we're going to take a brief intermission for Part 1 of a 3-part project that we're going to be conducting in this unit. And Part 1 of this project is about a process we've already been discussing, cellular respiration. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about what you're going to be doing this weekend. All right, so this is a 3-part project, and it's all about the idea, how do organisms break down and utilize energy from organic molecules? And as you guys may have already ascertained, the end result of this process also involves the synthesis or creation of organic molecules in some organisms, right? But right now we're just talking about Part 1, cellular respiration. So you are going to illustrate. By illustrate, I mean literally draw. So you can either draw it on paper and take a photo of your drawing and upload that, or digitally draw it somehow, however you would be able to draw it digitally. So I'm open to however you're able to produce that. Like I said, if you just want to do it on paper with a pen and pencil and some color, you can do that. If you are able to draw it on like an iPad or something, and you can depict it that way, we're open to that. If you have some other method of like digital rendering that you have an ability to do, that is also fine. But for Part 1, you are going to be illustrating the process of cellular respiration occurring within the mitochondria. So your illustration must depict the mitochondria with attention to the formula for cellular respiration, including the products and reactants and the direction of the products and the reactants, and appropriately caption your diagram describing the process you illustrated. And there is a rubric here, and the rubric is going to be the same for Part 1 and 2, because for Part 1 and 2, for Part 1, you're going to be describing cellular respiration, and for Part 2, you're going to be describing photosynthesis. And then for Part 3, which will go on more in depth, but you're going to be putting those two processes together. And instead of just drawing it out, you're going to be producing more elaborate creative work, which includes, and I hope you choose, the option of making a TikTok about this process. But before we get all the way to the end, let's go back to the beginning and talk about your assignment for this weekend. So Part 1, cellular respiration. So when we're talking about cellular respiration and you go and do a Google search, you might find images like this one that I'm showing you. And as you guys might be able to see here, we can recognize there's carbon dioxide being released and water being released. And we have food going in and oxygen going in. So there are parts of this process that we are familiar with here, but this is a much more elaborate, a much more advanced depiction of cellular respiration. So anything that mentions glycolysis or the Krebs cycle, if you want to do some additional research and explain the process that way, you can, but this is quite complicated. This is AP biology territory. So if you don't want to do additional research to understand that because it's not required for this class, make sure that your depiction of cellular respiration is showing the mitochondria and is showing the direction of the products, so the reactants, glucose and oxygen, that react in the initial chemical reaction of cellular respiration within the mitochondria that is producing energy, so in the form of ATP. And what I would say is this image here is perhaps a little bit below what you would want to write, right? So I showed you one that was a little bit too advanced with Krebs cycle and glycolysis. This here is just calling the energy produced just energy, but in your case, you want to make sure you refer to it as ATP or adenosine triphosphate. But this is a good caption. Respiration is the process that the body uses to release energy from digested food. And you can go even a little bit further and say the chemical bonds, right? Releasing the energy stored in the chemical bonds. Out. So with regard to how you're being graded for this assignment, it's only Part 1 of your project. Here we go. This is a good example. So this is maybe not super pretty, but this is a good starting point for what you want to draw, right? So we can see that it's a mitochondria. We can see the direction where the glucose is going in. They even drew a depiction of like a glucose molecule, oxygen going in. There's a little illustration for water and energy. You would want to call the energy ATP, but this is what we're looking for, right? So it's difficult in science sometimes to explain concepts that we cannot see with our eyes, right? So cellular respiration is one of those processes that happens at such a small level, at the cellular level, that in order to understand it, scientists have to draw it or depict it with animations, explain it in videos, etc. And so a big part of science, especially today, as science becomes more and more important to the general population, is how do we explain science in a way that makes sense, is interesting, and compelling to a non-expert audience. So that is part of your goal, what you are doing to make this project is you want to make your depiction of cellular respiration pretty and interesting and creative, but you also want to make sure that you include these essential components. So let's go over the rubric. So I'm only going to be going over the highest category, what I expect in an A project, okay? So it accurately and precisely depicts the process of cellular respiration and or photosynthesis, but for this one, we're just talking about cell respiration. The diagram is visible from a distance, meaning that you didn't draw a tiny little diagram on a paper, or you drew a big mitochondria and all your labels are really small. You're trying to make a product that is accessible by your reader. And to know that the way that you're submitting it to your teacher, the way you're submitting it to me, could be taking a photo of your picture. So you want to make sure that whatever you produce, whatever you draw is able to be understood by your audience, by me. The whole page is used, so you're not using a really small portion of your image. This is kind of like scaling a graph, right? You want to choose whatever you're going to draw is the same size as your canvas. And that goes for like digital art as well. You want to make sure your canvas is cropped appropriately. The whole page is used and the illustration is colorful, and color is an important note. If you are drawing it on paper and you don't have any colors, maybe you can like come up with a photo digital art rendering hybrid situation, but I do want to see some color. So if you only have some highlighters and some pens, get creative. All right, for the caption. So the caption and labels are accurate and they describe the process depicted in the diagram, meaning you are accurately identifying the products and the reactants, and your caption, which only has to be 1 to 2 sentences, it does not have to be very long, is accurately describing the process of cellular respiration, where the chemical bonds in glucose are broken apart in the presence of oxygen in order to produce energy that is usable by the cell in the form of ATP. So you want to make sure that you have a scientifically accurate description using appropriate scientific vocabulary to describe this process. In addition, and this is a whole element of the rubric, so make sure you include this in your diagram, you must show the full formula accurately for cellular respiration, and the diagram should be original work and be organized and neat. Now, as we discussed, many of you may think that you want to gather inspiration from an image that you found online, which is perfectly fine, and hopefully where all of you are going to start, but you want to then make it your own. So if you do an exact copy, you copy a drawing that you find online, that is okay, but that's immediately gonna knock you down 1 point. Ideally, in my dream universe, you guys are finding an image online as your inspiration and then you're turning it into something unique. So I wanna show you guys an example that I have from last year of what some students did when they were assigned the same project in not a digital setting. So they did a poster in person. And you can see here, this is so it's a poster, it says cellular respiration. We have the reactants, a definition of the reactants, what's reacting together, AKA raw materials, the products or what is being produced or made. the full equation, an illustration of the mitochondria, the directions of the reactants. I don't see, oh, H2O and CO2 coming out. So all of these things are depicted in the image. And then this is the second part of the assignment here with photosynthesis. But this is an example of a student product. This one, was not perfect. It has really a lot of great scientific information, but they could have used more like artistic creativity. I have another example, and this is for part 3. So this is showing how cellular respiration and photosynthesis, work together in an ecosystem. And you can see this is a little bit more pretty. So they did some really nice artwork, but it includes a little bit less scientific jargon. I want you guys, those of you that have like artistic skills, this is the time to bust them out. Draw an organism that the mitochondria is in, right? So you can draw a human, and then you can draw like a circle coming off of the human and say within the human there are cells, and within each cell there's mitochondria, and you can show this process of cell respiration happening. And that can be a way that you can improve your project and improve your score, even if you don't feel like you necessarily have like the absolute best caption written. So in order to understand and remember scientific facts, especially ones that are difficult for us to observe directly with our own eyes, it's important to use creativity to not only like remember these things yourselves, but also to communicate these ideas to others. So I hope you guys enjoy producing this creative product. It is really just a picture of a mitochondria going through cellular respiration. So don't get too nervous about this assignment. You are drawing a mitochondria, you are drawing this equation, and you have the whole weekend to do this assignment. If you have any questions or you need any additional help completing this assignment, I have linked a video in the YouTube description from the Amoeba sisters about cell respiration. It's not too long and explains cell respiration in the terms that we will work on it and describe it in living environment. Because keep in mind, as I said a little bit earlier in this video, the process of cell respiration is actually much more complex, but we are only touching the surface on that process in living environment. So, all right, all that to say, there is additional information also in yesterday's video. So Unit 3, Day 4, and Unit 3, Day 3 of me talking about cellular respiration. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out on Remind. But otherwise, good luck, and I can't wait to see all of your mitochondria drawings. Bye, guys. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you all on Monday on Zoom.